Hello and good morning from the Westchester Library System and from the Senior Law Day Collaborative. My name is Elena Falcone. I direct outreach programming at the Westchester Library System, and I'm also a co-chair of the Senior Law Day Collaborative, along with Sarah Steckler of Keen & Bean and Melinda Bellis of Legal Services of Hudson Valley. And today we are also ably assisted by our marketing consultant, Bruce Siegel of Marketing Sense. So we are actually a team of more than 150 professionals who are committed to sharing information of relevance to older adults and caregivers. Those professionals include attorneys, financial planners, care managers, even librarians. If this is your first program with us, I hope you've had a chance to explore our website, seniorlawday.info. I'm going to take a second just to bring that website up on the screen. All right, the website is one that is chock full of information of relevance to, I hope, all of you. We've been doing webinars for the last year. They are all listed on this site. You can just click and jump over to them, an array of topics. We offer free consultations, which I hope you know about, that can cover senior law, financial, legal topics. And you can register for all of these events right here on the website. Perhaps most importantly, if you have a question during the course of the year or after this presentation, you just click on that button and you connect with us. So this is actually a pretty powerful resource to give you information that you could use today. The other thing I want to say is typically we address legal, financial, caregiver topics, but today we're actually going a bit broader and we're talking about core wellness. We're going to be talking about how to spring into a healthier you, and I'm really delighted to see how that the people who have joined in on this. And we're going to be addressing nutrition to support your immune system. We get to hear today from Antonella Caggiano, who is a registered dietitian who works with the Department of Senior Programs and Services. And if you're not familiar with the Department of Senior Programs and Services, they are our core backbone resource in Westchester County. And they are an active partner in the Senior Law Day Collaborative. So I hope that you will use this, if you've never encountered them before, as a warm welcome from that organization as well. So with that, Antonella, I'd like to turn this over to you, and I will be periodically interrupting you. I apologize in advance as people send in questions. Please use the Q&A option that you have on your screen. I'll be fielding those to make sure the questions get to Antonella. And if there's any question that we don't get to answer today, we will certainly follow up with you. Antonella, go take it away.
Great. Well, thank you for having me today, and thank you for all that you do, because the Senior Law Day Collaborative is very helpful to many seniors in the county. I've personally participated in some of the law days that we've had, and I have listened to some of the lectures, and they're chock full of wonderful, wonderful free information as well, and lots of resources to great practitioners and attorneys. So thank you for that. As Elena said, I am a registered dietitian, and I work with the Department of Senior Programs and Services, and we do a lot of things for the seniors in Westchester County. I happen to work in the Nutrition, Health, and Wellness Division at the department. And within our unit, which is a wonderful team, we do a lot for the seniors as well. So primarily what we do, let me just pull up my screen here for a second. We have a brochure, and this shows you some of the areas in the county where we monitor the nutrition programs. So we oversee and monitor a lot of the programs in Westchester County in 16 communities. Now, those are congregate meal sites where there's a hot meal served. And then there's also home delivered meals for seniors who are medically homebound. The congregate centers have been thriving previous to this pandemic, obviously, but they're slowly starting to reopen. And perhaps some of you have even participated in some of the programs or eaten a meal at one of our many centers. So it's one of the main things we do. And we want to make sure that seniors have access to a good meal and some recreational programs as well. So I'm very proud to be part of this. You can have access to this brochure in its entirety. I think after this program, it'll be in the resource packet. Okay, so let's spring right into the importance of a healthy immune system. By now, at the hopefully end of this pandemic, we've all thought about things that we could do to actually keep our immune system healthy and strong. And basically, the immune system, as you can see on the slide, is a system responsible for fighting foreign invaders in the body, like pathogenic bacteria and viruses. I say pathogenic because, as you know, not all bacteria, at least, are bad for you. We actually need bacteria, but the bad ones we want to keep out. We want to place a barrier up for them to invade our system. So before we get to the factors that can depress the immune system, remember that the barriers can be pretty tangible. For example, our skin is a barrier of our immune system. It protects things from entering it. Your saliva is also a barrier because there's actually antibacterial substances in it that can deactivate any pathogenic bacteria or viruses. The mucus in your nose and lining your intestinal tract is also a barrier. And stomach acid is also a barrier of the immune system. And as we get older, that stomach acid naturally decreases. So just by way of aging, we become a little bit more at risk, and our immune system can take a little bit of a level below what it normally would have been. So there are things that depress the immune system, and we have control over some of them, but not all. So we really can't, fight getting older, although many of us think we can. We can't really always have control over the environmental toxins around us that can depress the immune system. Chronic diseases, we try to stay healthy, but if you have a chronic disease, it can also suppress your immune system. Lack of sleep and rest seems pretty obvious, but I think it's a good reminder that if you are chronically deprived of sleep and rest, that your immune system is going to suffer as well. And maybe during this pandemic, we've all had a chance to rest a little bit more and stay a little bit healthier. But the two that are most nutrition related, obviously, are poor nutrition and excess weight. So if you're not getting the nutrition you need, your body is not going to function as well at protecting it and keeping it healthy. So it's pretty important what you eat, obviously. That's why we're here talking about this. So next slide. Okay. Can't really talk about the immune system without talking about the GI system. At first, I wasn't going to bring this into the discussion, but there's been so much research about the gut that regulates the absorption of nutrients while keeping out damaging molecules and pathogenic organisms. The microbiome is what they are calling it mostly these days. It's basically an internal metropolis of trillions of microorganisms or microbes that live in our bodies, mostly in the intestines. It's an area of intense research right now. And our diet plays a big part in keeping this healthy. The GI tract has a really large surface area, and one source quoted it as the total area of the human adult gut mucosa is that of half of a badminton court. Why they didn't choose a tennis court or a basketball court, I'm not sure, but half the size of a badminton court, which you can imagine is quite large. The gut contains the largest number of immune cells in your entire body. Some say up to 70%, and comes into contact with the largest amount and number of different molecules and organisms of any organ in your body. So all that being said, can shed some light on how truly important keeping your GI system and your gut healthy. An interesting fact is that the gut also contains a lesser known part of our body's nervous system called the enteric nervous system. And that's helped the gut earn the nickname, the second brain. The second brain in our gut is in communication with the brain in our head, and it plays a key role in certain diseases in our body and overall mental health. So sometimes you might try to make a decision and say, I'm just going to go with my gut. So maybe that's where that came from before the science actually caught on. It's actually quite interesting. I think it's amazing. So now let's talk about some of the foods that can actually help with keeping your gut healthy. So most people have heard of probiotics, and maybe some of you even take a probiotic supplement, but there's also something called prebiotics. And prebiotics are the foods that help to feed the friendly bacteria in your gut. So you're not ingesting actual probiotics, you're ingesting foods that break down. They usually have resistant starch, which means fiber that your body is not breaking down. And that fiber feeds the bacteria and creates probiotics and helps keep the balance of microbes in your gut in a good way. So generally, all fiber-rich foods are going to have some sort of prebiotic quality. So some of the predominant ones that actually have more resistant starch are potatoes. Believe it or not, potatoes are really not bad for you. Sometimes they get a bad rap. If they're French fries, of course they will, but we're talking about a whole potato as a whole food, not a French fry. The interesting thing is with potatoes, obviously they need to be cooked, but you'll get more resistant starch if you eat them after they've been cooled. And that's because another resistant starch forms after they've been cooled. So it's summer. If you like potatoes, maybe make a nice potato salad without mayo or half the mayo and maybe olive oil. So you can enjoy them that way. Bananas, same thing. The less ripe they are, we like them very sweet, but the less ripe they are, the more beneficial they will be in terms of a prebiotic. If you like green bananas, you'll get them that way as well. Jerusalem artichokes. I've actually never had a Jerusalem artichoke, I will confess, but it's very similar to a potato. It's a root vegetable and it's rich in the prebiotic inulin, which is a starch, basically. Let me see if I can give you some more. It's also known as an earth apple. Despite its name, the prebiotic food is not related to the regular artichoke. So the name might have artichoke in it, but it's not related to regular artichokes. They can improve the health of your gut and nervous system, and they're prepared similarly to potatoes by steaming, boiling, baking, or sauteing them. You can even eat these raw, however. Next is garlic. We all know garlic is good for you in many ways. And we'll talk about a little bit more coming up, but garlic also is a good prebiotic. The thing with garlic, you need to, if you're going to use it in cooking, you need to cut it up about 10 minutes before you're actually going to use it, because that helps to release the good chemicals in it that are healthy for you. Apples, I won't say much about that. We know that an apple a day keeps the doctor away or something like that. And asparagus. So generally all fiber-rich foods are good, but these are some of the notable ones. And now the probiotic foods. Like I said, maybe you're taking a supplement, but these foods here actually have good microbes and they sort of replenish your biome, kind of like a lake. You want to replenish it with trout. So they may replenish the lake with trout. So you're going to be putting, not trout, but you're going to be putting probiotic foods into your gut and biome to replenish it. And these are some foods you may be familiar with some. Kefir is, I'm going to give you the correct. So it's similar to yogurt. You might see it in the supermarkets these days. It's a fermented dairy product that's a unique combination of milk and kefir grains. It's been consumed for over 3,000 years and it originated in Russia and Turkey. And it actually means feeling good. It's slightly acidic and tart and contains anywhere from 10 to 34 strains of probiotics. Yogurt, we all know yogurt can be good for you, preferably yogurt that's not sugar laden and sweetened. So the more plain the yogurt is, the better. Especially Greek yogurt, it has a good amount of protein. Next are fermented vegetables. Maybe some of you actually ferment your own vegetables and do some canning, similar to sauerkraut. We all know sauerkraut is good for you as well. Tempeh. If you've never had tempeh, it's a fermented, see the trend here, a fermented soybean product that you can eat raw or boiling. And you can eat it with miso, and we'll get to what miso is as well. It can be used as a substitute and is used as a substitute in a lot of vegetarian cuisine, usually in stir fries, or you can bake it, grill it, marinate it. It's actually quite tasty. Kimchi, you might be familiar with, is a Korean take on fermented vegetables. They usually start with a base of cabbage. It's basically the Korean sauerkraut take on cultured veggies. They mix a main ingredient, like I said, like cabbage, with a number of other foods and spices like red pepper flakes, radishes, carrots. If you've ever eaten Korean food, usually they'll have some at the table for you. And miso. Miso is fermented soybean paste, basically. So the common denominator with probiotic foods is that they are usually fermented in some way. So if you're not familiar with some of these, you may feel encouraged to try something new this week.
Antonella?
So, yes.
Before you move on, the one of the things I wanted to just check in on. So I see here it says probiotic foods from foods or supplements, and also prebiotics are sometimes done as people say food or supplements. So equally valuable to those.
I would say yes. Yes.
Okay. We were talking earlier about supplements, and hopefully if folks stay to the end, we're also going to talk about a couple of online resources where you can look at the comparative efficacy and price of different supplements that you might take. But certainly this is all tasty stuff that you've listed here. One question came in, was asking, I guess, on the side of prebiotic foods about potato starch powder. And I don't know if that's used as a supplement or potentially as an ingredient to other cooking, but do you think that would generally be counted or as valuable in terms of it being a fiber-rich food?
I have not personally heard of potato starch fiber as a supplement
Powder.
or as
potato
a
starch
powder.
powder. So I'm thinking I've seen that as a cooking ingredient, but I'm not sure that it would.
Actually, you're right. I have heard of it as a cooking ingredient. I don't see why that would not have some of the same properties. I'm guessing it's probably an alternative to cornstarch. That's my guess.
If the fiber quantity is actually the same.
Okay.
So that's something worth checking. So I'm not sure if we've answered your question, but I guess that maybe at the end of this, I'll go look it up on those databases I was talking about.
Yes. I'm not quite sure, to be quite honest with you. I do think it's used in baking as an alternative to cornstarch.
And for those who have not had Jerusalem artichokes or tempeh or kimchi or miso, yum, you're missing out.
Yes, they are delicious. I don't know about the artichoke, but the rest of it is really good. Okay, we'll move on to the next topic. So we're going to talk just a little bit about protein. I think most of us know that getting enough protein, especially as we get older, is important. A deficiency of dietary protein or amino acids can impair the immune system and leave you more susceptible to infectious disease. So you want to make sure that you're not, having a tea and toast breakfast every morning, that you're getting some sort of protein for breakfast and throughout the day. You want to choose high quality complete protein such as eggs, fish, lean beef and poultry, tofu, tempeh. Again, those are some of the vegetarian options for that. The RDA, the recommended daily allowance for protein, there's a formula for it. It's 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. So I'll do the math for you. If you weigh 150 pounds, divide that by 2.2 to get kilograms, and then you multiply that by 0.8, and that reaches approximately 54 grams of protein a day. Now, what does that translate to? A 3-ounce serving of protein, for example, in the picture, you see the fish and the lean beef, generally amounts to about 21 grams of protein. So you need about twice that a day. And you're also getting it from other sources that you're eating throughout the day. Protein is coming from some of your vegetables and your beans and other areas. It's not always just that 3-ounce portion of meat or poultry. So know that if you're getting at least a 3-ounce, portion of maybe fish every day and eating healthy the rest of the day, you're likely getting enough. But we couldn't not talk about protein because it is pretty important. Protein is one of the macronutrients, by the way. There are 3 macronutrients, and they are protein, they are fat, and carbohydrates. So now we're going to move on to another macronutrient. And so we're going to talk about fat. Usually when you talk about fat, it's in a negative light. We don't want to eat that much fat. It's not good for you. It's all about what kind of fat you're eating. Fat is actually quite important to your health. They're essential for maintaining your good health, especially as you age. Your body needs it, and it needs it to give your body energy, to protect your organs. You know, your organs need fat padding around them. Cell growth, it helps to actually keep your cholesterol and blood pressure under control if you're eating the better sources of fat. And it helps your body absorb vital nutrients. Some vitamins are only digested and utilized in fat. So they are fat soluble. So without fat, you can't utilize those vitamins, which are crucially important. So some studies indicate that omega-3 fatty acids are also anti-inflammatory and might be useful in managing anti-inflammatory and autoimmune diseases, and that diets that are low in this particular fat, omega-3s, are associated with chronic inflammatory conditions. So inflammatory conditions you may have heard more about during this year, during the pandemic, because you may have heard that one of the things COVID has done or does is create inflammation throughout the body and something known as a cytokine storm. So if you're eating foods that are anti-inflammatory, that will definitely be beneficial to you. I'm not saying it's going to prevent COVID. I'm just saying it's one of the tools you have to try to keep yourself healthy. So where are we going to get these anti-inflammatory omega-3 fatty acids? Which, by the way, we can only get from our foods. You can't make omega-3 fatty acids. It's an essential fatty acid that needs to come from the foods that you eat. So a lot of them come from cold water fish, salmon, tuna, mackerel, sardines. Ground flax seeds actually has some omega fatty acids in them. Walnuts, pumpkin seeds, and leafy green vegetables. So getting more of those foods and omega-3 fatty acids is a good way to help your immune system. But at the same time, you also want to minimize the fats that are not so healthy, the trans and saturated fats that are usually found in commercial baked goods, fried foods, cheeses, whole and 2% milk, ice cream, cream, fatty meats, butters, and margarine. Okay, so the more whole a food is, the likelihood that it's healthier for you. You know, if you look at this picture, you see a nice avocado and some oil and nuts and salmon. If you think of the bad fats, you're really thinking about baked goods, packaged goods. You know, the more whole a food is, generally, the better it is for you. Okay. Bruce, are we doing the poll now?
Sure.
I'm going to do that. I have a question for you before we move on to the next slide. So Bruce is going to help me with that. So the question is, were you given cod liver oil growing up? Oh, half and half. Oh, nope. Maybe not. This can also, the results may also depend on your age or where you grew up as well. So overwhelmingly no, but there are 31% of you watching that receive cod liver oil growing up, which is interesting. Cod liver oil is a source of omega-3 fatty acids. So there was actually some truth to it being good for you. Not saying to take it now, but I was just wondering, well, sometimes those old wives' tales and what we've done in the past makes sense in retrospect. So, okay, so 31% yes, 69% no. Okay, so now we're going to move on to one of the vitamins, one of the micronutrients. So now we're going to talk about vitamin D, one of the micronutrients. So vitamin D is not just a vitamin, it's actually a hormone that our bodies can make as well. And it's primarily thought to help with bone health. Vitamin D helps the body absorb the calcium that we get from our foods. That's its main function. But it also helps to maintain the integrity of epithelial barriers. Remember, barriers, you think the gut health and immune system, and it stimulates the production of antimicrobial substances that help fight viruses and decrease inflammation. Inflammation, there's that word again, we're going to hear it a lot. A deficiency is associated with increased susceptibility to infection. One study actually showed that those who have low vitamin D levels are more likely to report having had a recent cough, cold, upper respiratory tract infection as well. How do you know if you're deficient? You have to get a blood test and talk to your doctor about where your values should be. But the best way to know is to get a simple blood test. So if you haven't had a test for vitamin D and you're at your physician and getting blood work, you may want to ask if that's something you could have tested. So if you have darker skin, you might be more at risk for being deficient in vitamin D. That's because the melanin, which is why your skin is darker, competes with the vitamin D. If you are overweight, you may be more susceptible to having lower levels of vitamin D. And that's because vitamin D is one of those fat-soluble vitamins. So the more fat you have in your body, the more you will need, and the more likelihood you would have a deficiency. And the older you get, the more likelihood you would be to have low vitamin D. That in part is because you may be spending less time outside in the sun, and we'll talk about that. And right there, spending limited times outdoors is going to affect that. Vitamin D has been unknowingly used to treat infections in the past, such as tuberculosis, before the advent of effective antibiotics. In earlier days, tuberculosis patients were sent to the sanatorium, where treatment included exposure to sunlight, which was thought to directly kill the tuberculosis. They went about it in a roundabout way, but obviously the sunlight was helping these patients. So I'm going to move on to food sources of vitamin D. And you can take a look at this. There is a common thread, and that is, let's see, cod liver oil, trout, salmon, sardines, tuna. I think you're all seeing what I'm getting at. Does anybody know why mostly fish sources are some of the highest food sources of vitamin D? I don't know if anybody wants to chat in for that. Let me know if anybody, but I will get into that. There aren't a whole lot of foods that are a good source of vitamin D, as you can see, other than a lot of the fish. Let me see if I can. They live in water. Yep, I'm seeing this. So they live in water, correct? There's a little bit more to that. So if we live in water, would we have higher vitamin D? I had to actually research this, and I'm not even sure it's completely correct, but the most logical explanation is that in the water or on top of the water live plankton, phytoplankton, and animal plankton, but mostly phytoplankton. And they're swimming on the top of the water, and they are in direct sunlight. And what do the fish eat or swallow or consume? They swallow these phytoplankton, which have been in the sun, and probably pretty high in vitamin D. So the fish eat that, the bigger fish eat the smaller fish that ate that, and so on and so on. So fish are generally a very good source of vitamin D for, I think, that reason. The RDA for vitamin D, if you're between 51 and 70, is about 600 IU, which stands for international units. It's just how vitamin D is measured in the US mostly. And if you're 70 or over, it's 800 IU. Some people feel comfortable taking more, especially if they are deficient. And that's something you can talk to your physician about. Some products are fortified with vitamin D these days. I think some orange juices I've seen. So you can get a little bit more from some of those other sources. But let's talk about the other sources. Okay, so other sources of vitamin D. So the two other main sources, I'm going to say, since food is not always the best option, the sun. Most of us know that our skins synthesize vitamin D when we're out in the sun. And if you're wearing sunblock, unfortunately, it inhibits it. So have sun exposure responsibly and sensibly, 10 or 15 minutes in the sun a couple times a week could be good for you. Obviously, if you have any history of skin cancer or any issues in which you can't be out in the sun, don't do that. But it is a really good source of vitamin D, and the sun and being outside in general is good for you in other ways. Also, you can't get it through a window. I wondered that as well. So sitting near a window with the sun shining on you does not allow you to absorb the vitamin D. So sun is one. And the second is supplements. So since it's hard to get enough vitamin D, a lot of people take supplements because they may not be able to get outdoors and they may not be getting enough in their food and they may be deficient. So often people will take a vitamin supplement. There are two forms, and vitamin D3 is the more absorbable of those forms. So if you will be taking a supplement after speaking with your physician, vitamin D3 is usually what's recommended. So let me see if there's any, for supplements, D3 is recommended for better absorption, and of course, discuss with your doctor. So now we'll move on to our next vitamin, vitamin C. Now, vitamin C, one thing I don't remember mentioning is that vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin. So you do need fat in order to use it. So vitamin C is a water-soluble vitamin, and your body also cannot make this, and it must come from the foods you eat every day. It may decrease the duration and severity of symptoms associated with respiratory infections and promote phagocytic cell functions and support healthy T cell functions. Those all involve the immune system and eliminating or fighting off bad pathogens. It also provides antioxidant activity to support healing at the site of inflammation. Foods rich in vitamin C include oranges and grapefruits and tangerines, strawberries, bell peppers, spinach, kale, and broccoli, and many more. And as you can see, the trend is whole foods. So some evidence supports that supplementing with vitamin C decreased mortality by preventing the cytokine storm associated with severe COVID-19. So again, the inflammation, the cytokine storm, vitamin C is something that could potentially help you out. It's also, but by the way, it's also needed to make collagen, which is a fibrous protein in your connective tissue that's weaved throughout various systems in your body, your nervous system, your immune system, bone, cartilage, blood, and others.
Antonella, we have a question, just backing up a second, and when you're talking about vitamin D, is it possible to take too much? I think we've heard a bit of that as well. So not getting enough, but also taking too much, which I know they can identify in blood work. I don't know I know neither of us is physicians, but what's the current advice?
Yes, you can take too much. I would not personally recommend taking more than 2,000 international units a day with your physician on board if you are deficient, to bring you up. Some doctors do megadose if you're very deficient, but they're monitoring you and they are able to retest your blood work to see if you're getting a little bit too much. So because it's fat soluble, you're not going to pass it through the urine, as you would vitamin C. When you take a vitamin C supplement, you can usually tell when you urinate, that it's a brighter color. So whatever you haven't used will get excreted. With vitamin D, you're not going to do that. So you really need to be monitored for
And
that.
I think there is a greater level of caution that people give when it's a fat soluble vitamin.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So good question. Thank you. So for vitamin C, the recommended daily allowance is actually, it's low. It's 90 milligrams for men and 75 milligrams for women. So that's the baseline. Should you take a supplement? It's always great to get most of your nutrients and vitamins from the foods that you eat, but a vitamin C supplement generally cannot hurt you. I wouldn't suggest more than 2,000, again, milligrams per day. You also just need to be careful, because if you take that or maybe more, you might have some GI discomfort, maybe diarrhea, some nausea. And people with chronic liver or kidney conditions like gout, or a history of kidney stones that are calcium oxalate related, should not take more than around 1,000 a day. And again, talk to your doctor about all of this. So I think we are good. I think the next slide will show you just some more vitamin C sources. I look at this and I think, oh, it's like eating a rainbow. You know, we have so many wonderful foods to choose from, and sometimes we get stuck in a rut with what we've been consuming. So seeing something in front of you with some options is often nice. Oh, I forgot about, you know, prickly pears. I forgot about, you know, green cabbage. Haven't had that in a while. So generally it's nice to eat things in season, but we do live in a world where you can get pretty much anything these days out of season. But I would encourage you to eat in season as much as you can. That's when you're going to have the most tasty fruits and vegetables, when you're eating them in season. You know, have you ever had a tomato in like January as opposed to August? They taste so much better in August. So, okay, we'll move on to the next vitamin. Okay, let's talk about zinc. Okay, so zinc is a trace mineral, meaning that the body only needs a very small amount of it. It's actually needed for almost 100 enzymes to carry out vital chemical reactions in the body, and involved with the creation of DNA, growth of cells, building proteins, healing damaged tissue, and supporting a healthy immune system. So as you can see, it plays a vital part in the immune system and the development of immune cells that respond to infection, and inhibits the replication of certain viruses and reduces inflammation. A deficiency can spur inflammatory cytokines. It's not common, but happens more so in older adults. And so an excess has also shown negative effects on the immune system. So you always want to try to do things in moderation. Maintaining adequate but not excessive levels of zinc is important. It's one reason why food is always such an excellent source of obtaining nutrition versus supplementation. I'm not saying supplementation is bad, but you want to use it wisely. So eat food. Food contains a balanced variety of micronutrients, whereas supplementation with individual nutrients can lead to too much of some and not enough of the others. And the current RDA for zinc for people aged 19 and over is 8 micrograms per day for women, and 11 for men. But some people may take more than that in a supplement. Again, speak with your physician about that. Maybe some of you have also used zinc lozenges when you have a cold. So that speaks to its effect in perhaps shortening the duration of a respiratory infection as well. Sources of zinc, again, are all whole foods. Spinach, asparagus, shiitake and cremini mushrooms, sesame seeds, pumpkin seeds, garbanzo beans, lentils, cashews, quinoa, and oysters. Okay, let's move forward. I'm gonna skip to the spices that might help you as well. You may have a lot of these things in your cupboards already. Cinnamon, turmeric, ginger, and garlic. So cinnamon contains something called cinnamaldehyde, which reduces inflammation. You can use it on cooked fruit. You can sprinkle it in your oatmeal or even in your turkey chili. Some feel that it can even help control blood sugar. And you know, you can use cinnamon sticks, or you can even use, I think this is cinnamon. So if you're looking, you can just use a container like this. You probably have it in your cupboards already. So turmeric contains something called curcumin, which has anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer, and antioxidant properties. You've probably heard of turmeric recently for its anti-inflammatory properties. Ginger, also anti-inflammatory, can also be a digestive aid to soothe nausea and stomach upset. Before I get to garlic, one thing you could do, or I've known some people to do, is to have an immune boosting spoonful of honey. So you take a spoonful of honey, preferably not a processed honey, but maybe a local honey, and you put a pinch of turmeric, a pinch of black pepper, and a pinch of ginger, and down the hatch that goes. So the sweetness of the honey will probably help to wash all of that down, but that's something that some people do to help their immune system. So, garlic, like I said, we all know that garlic is very healthy for you. It's nature's antibiotic. There's been a lot of research on it. It contains sulfur, and the compounds, including allicin, are anti-inflammatory by helping to prevent free radical damage to the linings of the blood vessels. They also think that garlic can, actually the antibacterial properties in it can help kill bacteria that lead to food poisoning, including salmonella and E. coli. Of course, you wouldn't use it as a substitute for proper food sanitation or food handling, but just to speak to how potent of an anti-viral it might be, or anti-pathogen it might be. So you can also make tea from garlic. You may want to do that when you are alone for a while, unless you share it with everybody in your household. However, you can cut up a couple of cloves, put it in a cup or two of water, bring it to a boil, simmer it for a little bit, and sip that. So, okay. So now we're going to move on to just some easy ways you can use it. I won't go into all of these in depth. You'll have access to this later, but easy ways to use cinnamon, turmeric, ginger, and garlic. And again, for the garlic, like I mentioned, cutting it up at least 10 minutes before you use it helps to activate the healthy compounds in it. Okay, so I'm going to just summarize all the things that we went over. 1, support your gut's microflora by eating more prebiotic and probiotic foods. Consider taking a supplement. 2, eat high quality protein such as fish, eggs, and poultry. 3, get your omega-3 fatty acids by eating more wild-caught cold water fish like salmon, tuna, mackerel, sardines, ground flax seeds. If you've never had flax seeds, I use them. I buy them in a container like this. These are from, I think, Trader Joe's, but you can get them anywhere. I add this to my oatmeal in the morning, usually. Pumpkin seeds, walnuts, leafy green vegetables. 4, eat foods that are rich in vitamin C and zinc. 5, get a little bit of sunshine every day responsibly, and talk to your doctor about getting your vitamin D levels checked and if supplementation is appropriate for you. And 6, add herbs and spices to your daily food routine, especially cinnamon, garlic, turmeric, and ginger. At the same time, don't forget to cut down on some of the processed foods you might be or might have relied heavily on during this pandemic. Maybe springtime is a good time to clean out your cupboards. So if you can start eliminating some of those things, that would be beneficial as well. So I know sometimes eating healthy can pose a challenge for some budgets. So if you think about some of the foods that we talked about, many of them are low cost. One of the resources you'll have at the end is a piece that we did in our office. We do nutrition education pieces. And if you see, it says what does it say? 8 foods for $1 or less. So eating healthy does not have to be very expensive. So potatoes, bananas, garlic, apples, chickpeas. You can buy chickpeas in a can, you know. Lentils are very inexpensive. You don't even have to pre-soak them. Eggs, these are all whole foods that are low cost. And you can use canned products as an acceptable alternative to fresh sometimes. You know, if it's something like a can of beans, rinse off the sodium. And your freezer's your friend. So stock up on seasonal items, and if you can, freeze them for later. In the summer, if you love blueberries, buy more than one day's worth and freeze the rest. And
Okay.
there are more options and more information on budget-friendly foods in some of the handouts that'll be available to you afterwards.
Thank you for mentioning the freezer. That actually answers one of the questions that came up about the virtues of frozen versus canned versus fresh fruits and vegetables. And so the hierarchy would appear to be fresh fruits and vegetables, but you can also freeze them, and then canned kind of goes down a little bit further in
Yes.
terms of processing.
Yes, because canning often requires, or they use salt to help preserve it. Frozen, not so much. So
Another nuance, someone's asking about cooked garlic versus raw.
They say that if you let it sit for the 10 minutes, cooking it is okay. You probably lose some of the allicin in it, but as long as you've let it sit for a little bit, you're okay. Raw is preferable, but raw is difficult for a lot of people. I definitely understand, but don't let cooked garlic make you think it's not as healthy for you.
Great. And then one of my favorite questions, what about red wine and dark chocolate? Tell me they're health foods and a core food group.
Yes, dark chocolate can be good for you in moderation. And wine, there's pros and cons to the wine, but you know what? Moderation with almost everything. So have a little bit of chocolate every day. I do, and there are different forms of chocolate. So choose a dark chocolate. Choose a chocolate that maybe has less sugar. You can look at the ingredient list or the nutrition facts on the back of the chocolate bar, and it'll tell you, how many grams of sugar per serving. So choose wisely, but generally we live once. Have that chocolate and have a little bit of wine, as long as it's not contraindicated with any any medications you might be on. So now I have a bunch of recipes. I'm not going to go into all the recipes. I think how are we on time? I think we're coming to the end here. So I am going to just show you a couple of them, and there will be PDFs of these recipes for your resources. This is just some sample ideas for breakfast, lunch, dinner, a snack, dessert. They're not necessarily recipes associated with some of these, but just ideas to help you think out of the box. And the next slide is our first recipe is golden milk. And golden milk has been used, I believe it started in India, many years ago. It's simply milk infused with turmeric and other spices that are high in antioxidants. It's believed to aid a lot of ailments, including colds and coughs and inflammation, aches, pains, and restlessness. So pretty self-explanatory how to make this. Another is oven roasted garlic. Maybe some of you have had this at a restaurant. It's quite delicious and quite easy. And it's wonderful to spread on some whole grain bread, to toss into whole wheat pasta with olive oil and some grated cheese, put it on a baked potato. So it's always a fun one to do. Smashed chickpea salad. So it's taking basically a can of unsalted chickpeas, drained and rinsed, and smashing it up with a little bit of mayo, some celery, and you can ad-lib this as much as you want for your tastes. But it's a high fiber, healthy, immune boosting thing you can do. And some lentil soup. I've personally made this recipe many times and I love it. I've adapted it from its original source. I like to add some coconut milk. If you're not in the mood for coconut milk, you do not have to add it. Just add a little bit more water, a little bit more tomato paste, but it's quite yummy. And I threw this in as a bonus. I don't know that any of these, the cocoa powder, I don't know that any of these were ingredients that I spoke about or foods that I spoke about, but it's something I personally enjoy making too. It's a 4-ingredient fudgy sweet potato brownie recipe. So just when you think you can't make something healthy with 4 ingredients, I'm proving you wrong. A little trick with this, make it the night prior and put it in the refrigerator to set and enjoy it the next day. And okay, and like I mentioned in the beginning, your immune health is very much related to what you eat, but it's also related to many other things in your life. You know, are you exercising? Are you sleeping? Are you doing things that make you laugh? Laughter and the immune system are very closely related. You create good feeling substances and chemicals in your body that help to activate your immune system when you laugh, or when you listen to music, or when you meditate or do yoga. So find something you enjoy doing away from your computer if you can, and those things will help you out as well. So I'm almost finished, and I have to share this slide because it just made me laugh since this is a Senior Law Day collaborative, but salad bar exam. I thought it was funny. I hope you find the humor in it as well. And that concludes my presentation. If there are any questions, I'll take them, or I can pass it over to you, Elena.
So some specific questions that have been asked. Gas has been a side effect of eating garlic. Any suggestions on how to alleviate that problem?
Start slow. Don't have a whole garlic bulb at once. As far as actually cooked garlic will have less of an effect than raw garlic generally. And I don't know if this is generally speaking, but me personally, I find that if I use organic garlic, so if I go to Trader Joe's and I buy regular garlic, or I buy organic garlic and I have some of each on different days, I generally don't get that effect as much when I have the organic. Like I said, there's no basis for that. That's just a personal observation, but cooked garlic should have less of an effect. And if the smell bothers you or your loved ones afterwards, you can chomp on some fresh parsley. That'll help to absorb the smell.
That's a good Italian response.
Absolutely.
I know from my family.
Yeah.
Yes, all the recipes are available. I think we have a packet that we're going to send out to all the registered attendees via email.
Yes.
Is that correct? So thank you very much for that. And Antonella, at the very top, you and I talked briefly about wanting to about supplements and getting foods from food. And if you would stop sharing for a sec,
Yep.
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just to flag some resources that are available to deal with, I think, a lot of the information that we are constantly getting about what we're supposed to eat and not eat and how to improve our health. At the seniorlawday.info website, under resources, you'll find that there's a presentation that was done a number of months ago by yours truly that was on essential online health information. And so 2 of the resources that I flagged in that presentation, the video is posted here. One is Medline Plus, and the other is Consumer Lab. So my focus there was on authoritative sources. We had this wonderful dietitian come and give us this guidance on sort of macronutrients and micronutrients. But going forward, you're going to be hit with something else that someone tells you that you need to know about. So if you were to go ahead and click through to Medline Plus, you'd find a fabulous website where if you just put in turmeric, you would get directed to an authoritative sources. No one's trying to sell you anything. And this, for example, would give you some pretty complete information on what we know about these different herbs and supplements, and what safe dosages would be, etc. The other thing that you might choose to look at, which is available to those who have a library card, is called Consumer Lab. Consumer Lab does a fabulous job of synthesizing scientific information and making it available. We haven't got the time to go through this right now, but what it does is bring together all of the information, puts it, links you to the original medical articles about what has been tested. But I think more importantly, that notion of testing is there. we don't actually know if turmeric's gonna make you better or worse. We have indications of things. There have not been robust, huge, ginormous studies that are going to tell you whether or not garlic is going to totally fix your heart, but they can tell you what we do know, and they test different supplements for their purity, for whether or not their claims of having, the most amount of something good in it are actually true. And they also take a look at what's the most expensive and least expensive versions that you could be taking. So that's good consumer advice. Many of us supplements, actually, most of them don't have a lot of evidence behind their efficacy, but yes, and someone mentions it can be a placebo effect, right? So take a look at the science. It's accessible to all of us. And since we're spending money on this stuff, we may as well understand what we're actually spending that money on. And before you tell someone else they ought to take it too, you maybe should check what's actually known about this. So Consumer Lab is available through the Westchester Library System website if you have a library card, but the key thing is go to seniorlawday.info, where you'll find out about upcoming webinars, about our upcoming consultation day, and where you get to ask your questions at any time. And with that, I'm going to thank you, Antonella, for a fabulous
You're
presentation.
so welcome. You're
And
so
for all the
welcome.
lovely participation from the people who've been here. Somebody just shot in a question. What about hummus? It's good. What else do we need to know?
It's made chickpeas. It's a wonderful way to consume chickpeas. And it's great when you make it yourself too.
Yes. Bruce, off to you. And again, thank you, Antonella.
Yeah,
You're
I
so
just,
welcome.
wanted to thank you, and I want to just take a moment to thank our sponsors. And we have this beautiful recognition page on our website. So these webinars, without the help of our sponsors, would not be possible. So thank you very much. And also, as Elena pointed out, we're going to have, this is where you go on right at the homepage on May 12th to sign up for one-on-one consultations. And if you have any questions about, I'm sorry, you go on May 11th, it's a Tuesday, the consultations are on a Wednesday. If you have any questions about how they work or whatever, then I'm just going to put my my email in the chat. Also, we will have the recipes posted by Friday. If you don't see them for any reason, or just need help getting them, then just email me.
Thank you again, Nella.
Oh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome.